Hello there, it's Juliana Michaels and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm sharing all about alcohol inks. Tim Holtz just released some new alcohol ink colors, and in this video, I'm sharing my swatches of the new colors, how I like to create my alcohol ink backgrounds, and then over 10 different techniques you can try with them. And of course, along the way, I'll be sharing loads of tips and tricks. Before I get into it though, I want to clarify that I am by no means an alcohol ink expert. I just enjoy the medium and I wanted to share with you how I like to use them. Secondly, don't be afraid to play and practice. There is no way to fully control the outcome when working with alcohol inks, so try not to overthink it. At least that's what I always tell myself. Don't strive for perfection and just try to enjoy the process and the joy that comes with making. I also want to share a couple of safety considerations with you. When working with alcohol inks, you should always work in a well-ventilated area, and you should never spray or splatter the blending solution. You want to make sure you protect your work surface. I really recommend working on a glass mat or some other non-porous surface. You may also want to wear gloves if you have sensitive skin or you don't want your hands stained. So here are some of the supplies I'll be working with. The liquid that you need to use to help the alcohol ink blend either needs to be alcohol blending solution, which is specifically formulated to blend, and it will also remove alcohol ink. And then a 91% rubbing alcohol will do the same thing. The alcohol blending solution can be a little pricey, so the rubbing alcohol is a great, less expensive alternative, but you definitely want to make sure you get the 91%. The 91% has less water in it, whereas the 70% has more water in it, and so it will greatly impact how the alcohol inks move and react on your surface if you go with the 70% alcohol. So definitely want to go with the 91%. So as far as the surfaces you can work on, there's Yupo paper. This one is the Tim Holtz alcohol ink Yupo paper, but there's other brands of that available. Any kind of acetate will work, so just the clear like transparency, which is plastic. And then also this is Grafix craft plastic. They also have a Grafix Durabright plastic. There's alcohol ink hardcore panels. There's alcohol ink cardstock. You could also use foil cardstock, gloss paper. You can work on metal, glass, any kind of plastic, and glazed tiles. The tool you need to move the ink around is an air blower. You can also use a low heat hair dryer. There are ones that I've seen people recommend, but I've never personally tried one. You should not use a straw though to blow the ink. That would just increase your risk of inhaling those fumes, and that could, cause some health issues. So definitely don't want to do that. And then as far as a work surface, like I mentioned earlier, I like to work on a glass mat, and this one just happens to be the Tim Holtz glass media mat. As always, feel free to pull from your stash of alcohol inks to try these techniques. If you're interested in any of the products I'm using in this video, you can find the supply list with links in the description box below. When you shop through those links, I get a small commission at no extra cost to you, and that support means so very much to me. Also in the description box, you'll find links to blog posts with finished card examples using some of the techniques I share in this video. So feel free to check them out for more inspiration. Now let's get into the making. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you about the new Tim Holtz alcohol inks. And it's been 4 years since he came out with any new colors. It's hard to believe it's been that long. There are 10 new colors, and as you can see here, this is little swatches that I created for each of the different colors, and definitely leans to the neutrals in this release, with, two little kind of pops, maybe 3 pops of color if you kind of consider this Yonder, and and then the pink and the red here. But I am definitely loving some of these greens and these neutral ones that he's added. Now, I don't have the entire alcohol ink collection, but I do have quite a decent one. So I've got, I keep these swatches in my swatch book here, and I will be adding these colors in to fit in here with my other colors. But as you can see with the Cosmopolitan, there's not really, at least from what I have, you know, a pink that's the same. The I feel like the brick is definitely, even though it's similar to sienna, I feel like it's a bit more red, where sienna gives a bit more kind of brown. And then I felt like the same thing here with the greens, that, you know, moss and, you know, wilderness. This has a little more yellow tone to it. And, you know, same thing with juniper. Just feel like it just is another nice addition to some of the greens that I already have for sure. And then the same with the blues here. Bayou definitely, it's a much lighter version of these. And then Yonder's similar to Glacier and Sailboat, but again, it just has a slightly different tone to it. A little more cooler for sure. And then when you get to the neutrals, at least with the ones that I have, again, similar, but they're not. Like gravel and mushroom might look really similar, but mushroom to me definitely goes much more brown, where this gravel tends to go a little more gray. And the same thing with Smudge, like compared to Pebble. Smudge is a much lighter color than that one. So, and then of course Flannel, just a really nice cool gray there. So yeah, I feel like it's just a really nice addition to the alcohol ink family. As far as how I created my swatches, I cut little small squares of Yupo paper or just the alcohol ink, you know, paper that's made for the alcohol ink, and you know, apply the alcohol ink to the paper. I don't tend to use any alcohol or blending solution when I'm creating the swatches. I just kind of want the pure pigment. So obviously the color will change a little bit and get lighter as you add alcohol or the blending solution. So, you know, always something to keep in mind with that. And then these little pockets are from scrapbook.com. They're just their little 2x2 pages. And then I put them into this 6x8 binder from scrapbook.com. And as far as the little squares with the names on there behind them, that is part of a swatch guide that I've created, that if you're interested, I'll have the link to that below, where you can purchase that. And that guide has this kind of a swatch for all of the distress inks, the oxide inks, all the alcohol inks, the archival inks, and pretty much all of his products. So now that you've had a look at the new alcohol ink colors, let's get into some techniques that you can do with alcohol inks. So for this card, I'm going to be working with some alcohol inks and the 91% rubbing alcohol and air little blower. And of course, I've got some alcohol ink paper here. All right, so I'm just going to start by adding some colors to the paper here. And I'm going to be working with Chronicle, Juniper, Bayou, and Wilderness. And just putting dots of color here and there across the paper. Just kind of trying to make sure I get a little bit of the color across. And then now I'm going to add some of the rubbing alcohol. And then I'm going to start using my blower to just kind of help blend that across, go in different directions, and then just remembering to not squeeze so hard that, you know, like you're trying to give it CPR or anything. Just gentle squeezes. I almost feel like I do better using it sometimes with my left hand than my right, because my right wants to squeeze it and push harder. And so like if you want a little more color, you just pop that in. blend that out. I think it just kind of depends, like with alcohol inks, like what, you know, some people like really like that super wispy effect. And you know, that comes from just making sure you've got enough rubbing alcohol on there. I kind of like it a little more color on mine. So, you know, it's just a matter of playing around and finding what you like. There's so many different ways you can use these. And then like, you know, it's kind of like harsh lines like that. You can put a little alcohol there and kind of blow into it and then blow back out of it to kind of spread it around a little bit that way. Make it a little more wispy. And then I'm gonna get a little more color here in the center on some of this. Because the colors just in and of themselves, when they connect to each other, are gonna do some blending, so. There, and then, you know, you just can kind of keep going until you're happy with it. And you just want to there you go. So that's one option of what you can do with them. You know, and then you just want to let that sit to the side and dry. You can kind of speed up the heating process a little bit with a heat tool. You just want to make sure you keep it moving over the surface and don't let it, you know, get too hot in one area so it doesn't warp the paper or anything. So yeah, so there is one background. So for this one, we're just going to take one color. I'm going to be working with Cosmopolitan, and we're just going to get some of that onto the paper here. And then we're going to add a good amount of the rubbing alcohol. And we're just going to blow that into it and then back out. Get some here across the top. Blow that in. Out. You can really get that kind of wispy feel going by working it back and forth there. So as you can see, when you keep adding the alcohol, it just kind of breaks it up more, and then sometimes you start getting those little speckly bits. So, I am by no means a master of it, but I think that looks pretty cool. So I'm just going to keep playing. And here, there's still alcohol on the paper from adding it earlier, so I'm going to just play with what's there. Get that moving. Let's maybe add a little more alcohol here and then some more. Let's see what happens there. Color here. And I find this Cosmopolitan really has, like, it comes out kind of this almost peachy pink color, and then as it dries, it turns to this really rich, beautiful pink. So, yeah. There's another panel. And again, you're just gonna let, you know, kind of set that to the side and dry. Another fun little technique is kind of like a ink smooshing type technique. And so I'm just gonna got a few colors here. Got Flannel, Bayou, and Juniper. And I'm gonna put some the isopropyl alcohol onto my card here. And I'm just gonna kind of get that spread around real good. We're gonna add some of the alcohol inks here. And we can kind of work that around a little bit, not too much though. Get a little more color on here. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this other piece, put some alcohol on it, kind of rub that around so it's got a nice coating on it. And we're gonna smush it onto this other paper. Tap around a little bit. You're gonna just peel it off and kind of see what you get. So, you know, if you've got some areas like that where it's just a little too thick, kind of go in there and give it a dry, but that's just one way to get kind of a really nice, pretty, wispy background. Yeah, ooh, love that one, especially this one. That's turned out really pretty, I think. And you know, if you've got little areas that are kind of pooling a little bit, you can always kind of take a little paper towel and dab off some of that if you need to or want to. Kind of but I do like how this, like as these colors mix together, they kind of do some fun stuff, like that little edge along there. That's really cool, I think. So kind of get some pinks, and not sure, there's pinks coming out of one of these colors. I don't know if it's the Juniper or the Bayou, because it happened on this other panel that we made too, a little kind of purpley pink color there popping in, which I think is really pretty. And then that is making me want to try the Cosmopolitan and the Bayou together and see what happens. So kind of liked putting that alcohol down the paper first. Let's try that again. Get some more alcohol on here. Yeah, so say when we start mixing these two, because we're dealing with pink and blue, we get some probably really pretty purple in here. Yeah, you can start seeing it a little bit there. I don't know why this is like giving me like ocean jellyfish vibes for some reason. But, oh man, that is so pretty. Yeah. There's another option for us. So now for this one, I'm going to be working with some of the alloy alcohol inks. These just add a really cool metallic effect, and the difference between these and the mixatives is that the mixatives will make the alcohol ink metallic looking, where this is going to kind of have its own separate metallic effect. So I'll kind of show you that with these. You just want to make sure you shake it up really well. There's a little mixing ball in there, and you just want to get it, make sure that that's moving, shook up really well. If you don't hear the mixing ball, just keep shaking and shaking until it gets mixed in, especially if it's been sitting a while and you haven't used it. And the other thing with the alloys is you have to use alcohol blending solution. You can't use the isopropyl alcohol. The metallic powder that's in these will just flume or brush off. So the alcohol blending solution has some different chemicals in it that help kind of bind that better to the paper. So we're going to start off with getting some of that down onto the paper, and just gonna kind of get that spread around across the paper here. And then we're going to add some of our alcohol ink, and the colors I've got here are Smudge and Gravel. And then we're going to add in some of the alloy here. And you'll find that just like one little drop of that kind of goes pretty far. So yeah, don't necessarily need a lot of it, but it just adds this kind of cool, like metallic kind of veining through there. And if you need a little more of the blending solution to kind of help break it up and get it moving a little bit more, you can kind of see how that really breaks it up and gives us this really cool effect. Just gonna add a little more here. More is better. And then we can add a little more. And then we'll get a little bit more of the gravel here, darker. And I kind of got a little line there, so I'm gonna see if we can get that. There we go. So you got a little area that's not wanting to go. You can kind of even just tap your finger or a little paper towel into it. Get going, but yeah. And then again, of course, just kind of set that to the side, but you can kind of see how it adds that little streaks of gold here and there. And another option for working with alcohol inks is also just acetate. So it's just clear acetate cut down. And this one, I'm just gonna pull out the brick since I haven't played with that one yet. I'm just gonna put some squirts of that on there. And a little isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to move this over to the white area here so you can see a little bit better. And I did this kind of same technique on some cards a while ago, and I will link to those finished cards in the description box, just so you can kind of see like some ideas of what you could do with this background. It's not a video, but it's a blog post, so but it'll still kind of give you some ideas just how you can take this background and finish it with, you know, die cuts. And as you can see here, I'm kind of putting that alcohol along the edge and then blowing it back and forth just to kind of spread it out a little bit. Get you some of those wispy. Not very good at the wispy, but I do find with alcohol inks, you definitely just have to keep practicing, and I usually make a bunch of them at a time when I'm doing it. So, and I kind of have a little pile of them to pull from. And so yeah, there is another option for you. And let me just put something behind this so you can see this a little better. So this is another idea. I'm gonna just, this is just another one of the backgrounds that I had that I was kind of like about. And I just wanted to show you some ways that you can just add a little bit of some interest to the background. So this is, I've just got a paper towel and a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, and I'm gonna put that on the end of the towel here. And I'm gonna take that and kind of dab it along some of these like more harsh areas. And you'll see how that will just kind of break them up. It just adds a little bit of interest. And you can kind of follow along as you like with it. I just kind of had fun making patterns with them, and I really just love what it's doing to the and it kind of takes a background that maybe you don't like as much, it turns it into something that you do like. And you just kind of keep rotating around on the paper towel. And just dabbing that in wherever you like. And then also this is like a textured paper towel, so I think that's probably adding to why I kind of like how this is looking. So there's another option of just a fun way to add some interest to the backgrounds. All right, so another option for these, I'm going to take, I'm going to put some ink onto the actual glass mat and add some of the alcohol. Then you're going to take your paper and smush it into or onto the glass mat. Pick it up. kind of create your own little inks machine there. Then you can take your blower, just kind of let it see what happens there. If you got a little spot you want a little bit more, go back in. And if you wanted to get a little bit more somewhere or just change it up a little bit, do another dab. But yeah, so there is another option, is just to do kind of a alcohol inks machine technique. And then, you know, if you wanted to get this moving around a little more, you could put some alcohol on here. Or if there's some little areas that, you know, you don't necessarily like. Another option is just to take a little rubbing alcohol and like a brush or the tip of your finger, and you can kind of dab in there. Break up some of that. And then use your blower to kind of get your fingerprints, or if you're using like a cotton ball or something. But then that's going to give you a little bit of some texture there. So just another kind of fun way to do things. And then another option you can do is do splatters. So I've just got like a little kind of splatter brush here, and I've got some alcohol, and I'm just going to tap that onto the background. And you'll see wherever those little spots hit, you're gonna reactivate that ink and create some really cool effects that way too. So obviously you don't want to necessarily use like a really good paintbrush for this, because you are getting alcohol onto it. It's not really made for that. But there are brushes out there that are, so you might want to look into those. Oh, yeah, I don't really like the way that looks, but yeah, so there is another background option. And yeah, now that I kind of blended that out a little bit more, I like that better now. So yeah, so there you go. So another fun technique you can do with alcohol inks on your alcohol ink backgrounds is to add little splatters of alcohol ink. You just want to keep in mind that, you know, they are going to react when they hit the paper, so they will kind of spread out and transform as you're seeing here. But just another fun way to add a little interest to the background. So if you're really wanting to add more like colored splatters to the Yupo paper, you might want to try working with some distress paint or acrylic paint. And you just add a little drop there and then a little water to it to kind of get it a little more flowing, so that you can actually use it for creating some spatters. And then you can just tap that on. And then you're going to want to set this to the side and let it dry. The paint will dry eventually. It's just going to take some time. So you just need to be patient and give it time to dry. And then you've got another background. So when it comes to stamping on alcohol ink backgrounds, you're going to want to select an ink that is made for that. And some of the best ones that I've come across are Stays On, archival ink, and alcohol lift ink. So the alcohol lift ink actually like lifts off and removes the ink to kind of reveal the stamped image. And I'm going to show you that here in a second. And then the archival ink and the Stays On then is going to give you more of a stamped colored image like typical stamping would, but it won't bleed or run or anything, and it will actually dry because these are made to be used on non-porous surfaces. So a typical dye ink or a pigment ink that's meant to like soak into a porous surface is not going to work on here quite as well, just because it's just not going to dry. Pigment inks you kind of do a little bit if you dry them very carefully. But again, these are typically kind of more the recommended inks to use on there. So I'm going to work in my stamp platform here, and I'm going to position my paper here just kind of in the center. Use my magnets to help hold it in place. And then, you know, any of these images here will work. This pretty one here. And, you know, if you want to put it off to the side, this kind of depends on what you're looking for design wise, but I think that could be kind of pretty like that. And I like to use a stamping platform for this technique just because you don't have to worry about anything sliding or moving around when you go to stamp the image. And then you also want to make sure your stamp is clean before you do this alcohol lifting. If you've used archival ink, make sure to clean off your stamp with like the archival ink cleaner or some other stamp cleaner, depending on whatever kind of inks you've been using. But you just want your stamp to be nice and clean. And then you're going to apply the lift ink. And then stamp it over onto the background. And I kind of like to let it just sit there a second, and then I'm going to grab a towel or some kind of a clean cloth. And then you can already see that ink has been lifted off and is now over onto that stamp actually. And then I like to take a paper towel and like a bone folder or even a stylus would work, and I like to rub over. And then that just kind of helps lift off even more of that ink and reveal that stamped image. It just gets more and more so you can just see the design better and better as you kind of keep working on that. And you just want to kind of move that paper towel around so that you're not you know, so that you're working on a clean section each time. And then once you've got what looks like most of it up, and then you can move on. And but yeah, so there is that finished background. Now you might be wondering, well, what can I do with the ink that was on my stamp? Well, if you want to use that, you could place another piece of the Yupo paper into your stamping platform and just get it positioned there. Slide it up just a tiny bit. And then just get a image of what was stamped. So you can see it just pulled the ink from the sections that it had stamped there, and now you have this other background. It's kind of a nice 2-for-1 design. So now I'm gonna do some stamping. I'm gonna use some archival ink and black soot, but you could use any color of archival ink. And then I'm just gonna do some stamping with this deconstructed stamp set, just to kind of give you an idea of kind of the look you can go here. And the alcohol ink background that I'm working on here was created using Chronicle, which is, yeah, just a really pretty color, I think. there you can see, just get a really nice crisp image with the archival ink on there. And then you just want to give that ink time to dry. So you could use your heat tool to speed that up. But if you do that, I really recommend that you kind of keep it back pretty far from the paper. You don't want to overheat and like melt this paper, because this paper is made from plastic. So yeah. So, you know, if you wanted to do some kind of a collage stamp background, you know, you could let this dry and then, you know, grab another stamp and add some more layers of stamping on there if you wanted. So, but I think I'm just gonna go with that. I think that looks pretty cool. So another option. So next I want to share something that I kind of accidentally discovered when I was doing some practice inks and trying different inks on the alcohol ink just to see what would happen. And I thought I would try some different colors of archival ink and see what happened there. And I have to admit, I was pleasantly surprised by what happened when I used hickory smoke archival ink. So I am going to show you. The stamp set here I'm using is Floral Trims. So we're just gonna ink up the stamp set. And then again, I'm using hickory smoke. And you can see already what is happening. So I'm going to grab a paper towel and I'm going to place that over this image, and I'm just going to rub one little section up here just so you can kind of see. For some reason, hickory smoke, there's something about it, and it acts like the alcohol lift ink. None of the other colors that I tried did, but this one I got the same look of where the ink lifts. I mean, you can even see it before I start taking it off. It just starts lifting the ink. So while it's, before it dries, then you can rub over it and lift off even more, as you can see. So that's what happens when you're lifting that ink. It's coming off. And I think I've seen Tim like rub over, but I kind of have found that that seems to smear the ink when I try that technique. So I kind of like it better when I do it this way and just kind of rub over it to lift it off. Yeah, some pressure. You can really see it there. So you just kind of keep going over the whole area until you feel like you can't get any more off. And there you go. And then the color on this background that I used was the gravel, which, as you can see, it does some really cool stuff once it starts drying, and looks, yeah, just a really cool grungy color. Love it. You're definitely going to be seeing more of that coming up soon. Now we're going to just see, I just wanted to try out and see what happens with what's left on here, like if there's enough to do any kind of a stamp on here or not, like we did with the regular alcohol ink, because I've not tried that. So some of this you are experiencing with me. Oh, it worked. Yes. Look at that. Oh, cool. So like if you had used, you know, multiple colors like we did on the other one where we did the alcohol lifting, then, you know, you would get multiple colors onto your background. But yeah, isn't that, it's gorgeous. So another fun option that I have seen done, and I believe Tiffany Solario is the one that I saw do this, and she takes her alcohol ink papers and then puts it into an embossing folder and then embosses that. So we're gonna give that a try here. So just wanna make sure you remove that adapter die. Kind of put it in a little bit of an angle. Ooh, that is already really pretty. Now I want to take this sanding disc and rub it over the surface of the paper. And this is just a piece of fine grit sandpaper, so you could also use that if you don't have the sanding disc. This would probably work better with maybe an all-over type embossing folder pattern, but this is still really pretty. So there is just one more technique for you to use with your alcohol ink backgrounds. There is just one more way to use the alcohol ink backgrounds. And one more option that I want to show you. So I'm just gonna stamp an image onto this background that we created. And I'm just gonna use one of these florals from the French Garden stamp set. And that area is kind of pretty there. And I'm gonna just stamp this with the black soot again. You obviously could use any color, but I want to show you. Okay, so now we're gonna let that dry. And then what we're gonna do is I want to show you that you can die cut these papers. So give you another option for creating embellishments for your card. And I'm just going to be using some of the coordinating die sets from Simon Says Stamp. They have quite a few die sets that they have made that coordinate with some of Tim's stamp sets. And you can only find them at Simon Says Stamp. And they come, so you'll need to use little wire cutters to break these apart, and then kind of use that to trim off that little end piece if that bothers you, or you can just kind of break them back and bend them back and forth like this and break them apart, and then, you know, just position that on there and die cut it. And so here is a look at the die cut alcohol ink background. And as you can see, it cuts through really nicely. You might need to go through maybe a couple times to get all the way through, depending on how new your cutting plates are, but I think that'll be really pretty. You know, actually can even put it on top of that if you wanted. So like, yeah, I think that'll be pretty as an embellishment on a card for sure. Thanks for hanging with me to the end on this alcohol ink journey through the various techniques I shared here. I'd love to hear if you've ever worked with them or if you're now interested in trying them out. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can join me on a more regular basis. Hit the like if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to join me on my other social media platforms, you can find the links to those in the description box below. Also, feel free to leave me a comment if you have any questions or if there's something you'd love to share with me and our community. I'll see you in the comments below and in the next video. Until next time, stay crafty, my friend.